All right, everybody, welcome to the latest edition of Daily Gooner Pod here on the Sports Talk Line Network, here on YouTube and on other podcasting sites. I am one of the co-hosts, Raphael, joining you from the United States, joined by my weekly cohort, Ryan, coming from London. Welcome, Ryan.
Hello, Raph. Hope you're doing well.
I am well. And we have a guest, regular guest, but a guest from same part locale, Jacob Weeks. Welcome back, Jacob. Good to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
All right, pinch hitting for Sam, who unfortunately could not join us this week. But again, a full plate of issues. We'll get to the window. The rumor mill is already starting to churn furiously. We'll talk a little bit about the Chelsea match that's coming up tomorrow. We'll talk about West Brom and the performances of the kids, which have to put smiles on our faces. But first, we've got to touch on it. It wasn't just a dream. We wish it was just a dream. But Arsenal played in the semi last Thursday, second leg at home against Villareal, needing one goal to go through, and it never came. Jacob, I'm going to let you start us off. This is a story we've seen way too often with this club this year. Whatever you say about Arteta, since he took over for Unai Emery, he's tightened up the defense considerably. But the Achilles heel of this club from beginning to end in the league, in Europa, in FA Cup, when they fail, they can't score.
Yeah. To be honest, I was a bit surprised just how much we struggled, given that it's possibly the most attacking lineup we've seen under Arteta since he took over. You know, Partey based in midfield with playmakers ahead of him. We were set up to score and just couldn't create those chances. Once again, the striker was isolated, and they knew exactly where our play was going to come from down the wings and got everyone marking both wingers, and unfortunately kept us out the game, and also putting their men on Partey to stop him really controlling the midfield and playing in. The playmakers also kind of just stifled every play, and we lost the ball and just kept giving it back to them, which obviously, when we're just giving the ball back to them, doesn't allow us to build any sort of attacking plays. And it's kind of story of the season, other than a few moments of brilliance.
And Ryan, this brings us back to a point. We were talking at the beginning of the season, priority number one was keeping Aubameyang. There wasn't an Arsenal fan who would tell you else otherwise. We got to keep Aubameyang. He scored 60 goals for us the previous two seasons. He's been pulling us along, answering. And the complaint was, this is a one-man club. It relies too much on Aubameyang. Well, this season, for whatever reason, malaria, family issues, whatnot, his productivity has dipped. It's about half of what it's been in the previous seasons. And whether we like it or not, that label was found out to be true in all the wrong senses.
Yeah, and obviously he's been through a lot personally. He's had illnesses, family issues, but mainly we just haven't created for him. Like last season and the season before, we've created 100 plus big chances for the strikers, and they've scored more than half. This season, we've only created 60 big chances. So Aubameyang literally has to score more than half of the big chances for him to even hit 20 goals. And it just comes to the point. It just sums up. Thursday summed it up for us, really. We isolated him. He didn't get anywhere near the goal. And when he did, he had to hit a spectacular. He hit the post with a volley, hit the post with the header. He's fighting against four defenders. And that's pretty much been our season.
All right. So Jacob, this brings us back. I mean, it seems like that puts everything back on the table. The attack needs to diversify. I mean, it's not news to anybody who's watched this club, certainly the last 3 seasons or so, that everything is striker dependent. We think back to the Invincibles days where they had 4 guys up front with, Henry, Bergkamp, Freddie on one side, and they had gosh, my brain is fading here. But Bob on the other side, all of them could score in double digits. We get to even just a few years ago when you had Alexis pumping in goals from the left wing, Ramsey in the midfield scoring 10 goals. You had the striker. It was Giroud, not up to Henry's standard, but still scoring a lot of goals. Some diversity. Now, Jacob, nothing comes from the midfield. And even on the wings, where we look at a guy like Pepe, he's only scored 5 goals his first season at Arsenal, 6 this season. That's got to change in a hurry, in a big way.
Yeah, it really is all striker dependent right now. Obviously, bringing in Pepe was, the plan to add goals from the wing, and he has shown he's got the quality to score. I think there's a few reasons why he hasn't done that as much. And then some of the young wingers, Martinelli, Saka, Smith Rowe to an extent on the wing, they've kind of shown they can score goals, but just, they're going to need a few years before it becomes a decent goal return. They're getting into positions, and it's just not, some of Saka's ones we've seen got into great positions, not quite had the finishing touch. Other times he has. So it's going to take a few years to grow. So we really need Pepe firing more. And obviously Willian was brought in for a few more goals than he has got. But particularly, as you say, losing the likes of Ramsey in midfield. I think, am I right in thinking El Nene's top scorer for midfield this season?
You don't even want to look there. There's just a lot of one goal production from individual players. But again, Martinelli's injury, he had 10 last year, missed most of the season. He only has one this season. Ryan, Arteta made the claim after the match. He said big changes have to come, and everybody kind of rolled their eyes. Like, yes, we've heard this. And he made a very interesting comment about who he's going to play and what he's going to play. He said the players show me in practice that they care, but they need to show me on the pitch on match day that they care when the match is ongoing. And he handed those opportunities to show us against West Brom on the weekend. And the kids came through for him. We finally saw Emile Smith-Rowe score his first goal in the league. Wonderful feed from his young cohort, Saka, who's had an up and down, very promising, but he has his own problems. And I racked it up to being 19 years old. And it seems, as well as they do, almost too much is on their shoulders this season. I think that's an undeniable conclusion.
Yeah, and the first goal that we scored against West Brom pretty much summed up the second half of the season. It's literally been Saka and Smith Rowe that have carried us to where we are now. And I would actually be genuinely worried at where we would be if Saka hadn't started performing like how we expect Pepe to perform. Smith Rowe came in and just created and was just a breath of fresh air. That's just been the second half of the season, and we can't pin our hopes on these teenagers for too long, because Saka's looking like it now. He's burning out, especially if he gets picked for the Euros. But he needs the summer off, I think.
All right, but you brought up an intriguing name, Jacob. We're going to go back to you because we've had a lot of back and forth about this topic in our chat, which is he scored a brilliant goal. And it's the kind of goal that we all fantasized about when he joined the club 2 seasons ago, coming off of his performances in the French league, where he was just pumping in goals all over the place. And we thought, great, finally somebody who can take on a defense, win one-on-one, score the tough goal. And, here we are 2 seasons in and we have 11 goals from him. When he scores, they're magnificent, but he doesn't do it enough. Does he merit more opportunity, another season? Is he somebody you would look to move on if a good offer came or a better option arose? Is this just a matter? What's holding Nico Pepe back, in your opinion?
Yeah, I personally am a fan of Pepe. I would persist, although admittedly, if a good offer came in, I could understand taking it. But I really believe that, he's shown enough of the qualities that we brought him in for. The goal I was hoping to see more of was the one, again, I think it was Sheffield United earlier in the season, where he got the ball kind of just over the halfway line, turned the player and just ran all the way through and then slotted it. But, that was a situation where he was passed the ball into an area where he had space to run into. And I think ultimately that's not happened enough. We know what our midfield is. It's not, Odegaard can play those balls, but not many other people can. It's a very limited midfield in terms of the passing range or the vision. And he's not been given the ball with space to run into behind, or it comes straight to his feet and he's got two people in front and no overlapping fullback, which the quality of defending is better in the Premier League than it is in Ligue 1, and unfortunately he can't take on everyone at once. As much as we all want him to be Messi, Ronaldo, that's not going to happen, and he needs help from players around him, which hasn't happened for the past 2 seasons, really.
You bring up an interesting point. One, again, that we discuss a lot, Ryan, is he's not playing with a consistent right back because of injuries, because of rotations, whatever reason. And it seems that he works very well. He works better with some than others. Hector Bellerin's been the starter for most of the season, but it's pretty clear if you watch, he probably has the worst mesh with Pepe. And my memory might be cloudy on this, but Pepe worked on the overlap on that goal, and I thought it was Smith Rowe that was coordinating with him.
No, Chambers went on the outside of him.
Oh, that's
when
what it was, Chambers. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's what we asked for our right back, is to give Pepe that space. When he joined us, one of the conditions was reported was he wanted a right back that was going to overlap him. Bellerin doesn't overlap him. He goes on the inside and undercuts him. If Pepe wants to come in on his left foot, which we all know he does, Bellerin's pretty much bringing the defenders in front of him. Bellerin goes on the outside, he drags one player away and he's 1v1 on the edge of the box. And we've seen it a few times, what Pepe can do when he cuts inside. We saw it against Brighton, saw it on Sunday, saw it against West Ham. He will whip that ball into the top corner like 9 times out of 10. But Bellerin just doesn't do it. I just don't think he has the attacking awareness anymore, or the positional awareness of how Pepe wants to play. And Bellerin doesn't work with Saka, he doesn't work with Willian, doesn't work with Pepe, and I think that's a common denominator.
And that leads us, obviously, when we talk about the window in just a minute or two, that's got to be a priority position. I think if we're going to keep Nico Pepe, you want to maximize your return on him, you've got to give him help. And we know Cedric's a decent backup, but Cedric's not a 40 match a season right back, at least not with this club, if you have ambitions to improve and get yourselves back into Europe next year. I'll leave it with you to finish that.
Yeah, and the right back for me is probably the most important position, because if we get a right back that can do the job that for what Arteta wants from their fullback, which I'm gathering is what Tierney does on the other side, because you don't hit any problems from our left hand side. It's always our right hand side. Mm-hmm. If Saka wasn't playing on the right, if Saka wasn't playing as well as he was on the right, he would be in the same position as Pepe, because Saka has more of a right foot than Pepe. He can go on the outside. He doesn't look as bad. But if we get an attacking fullback like Hakimi, Aarons, Lamptey, someone that goes on the outside, Pepe is just going to explode, especially if we get a central midfielder that can give him the ball with 1 or 2 touches instead of having Dani Ceballos or Mohamed El-Neni turning 4 different directions and taking 16 touches. So if you get Pepe the ball quickly, I say it over and over and over again. I'm like beating a drum for the whole season. give him the ball 1v1 and he will win that 1v1 every time.
All right. So welcome to those of you joining us just at the top of the hour. We're about to talk about the transfer window, which is just a week and a half away, or at least with the end of the season coming up. But Jacob, I'm going to give you one more pass at this club based on the West Brom results, because again, Arteta saw some players who care. We saw the youngsters come through. We saw Pepe step forward under the right conditions, working with the right back who coordinates with him. But we also saw some of those players who really didn't step up for that opportunity. I mean, the objective play obviously was with Arsenal's in control, 2-0. West Brom makes a sub, and they give up a run, like a 70-yard run right through the middle. You see their midfielders kind of flailing behind him. That's the negative for everything we saw. The Pepe, we said, where's that been all year? Obviously with Williams' free kick, where's that been all year? When we saw that 1v6, we shook our head and said, we've seen that too much this year.
Yeah, and obviously the midfielder struggling to get back, unable to get back, was Dani Ceballos, who, we've all seen enough of this season, and thankfully that is coming to an end. But yeah, it's clearly an area of the pitch we need massive improvement in midfield. But yeah, it was nice to see some good moments of play. There were some good goals, and obviously Saka at left back getting forward. I know he's played brilliantly on the right. I still think he's absolutely brilliant on the left. Still, prefer him in the forwards, but just getting, moving across the in behind defenders, and he puts in some quality balls as well. I don't know how we didn't score more, to be honest, with some of the balls he put in. But yeah, once again showing that he is just incredibly versatile, and wherever we need him, he will perform for us. Not anything we didn't expect from him, and then yeah, obviously, Willian getting a free kick, nice moment, but he's done it when it doesn't matter anymore. Like we needed him a month ago, even more, but I don't need to say much more about Willian.
All right, so Ryan, this brings up the enormity of the job, and in that comment, in those quotes where Arteta talked about, he took probably the hardest shot at his team. He defends them. He takes bullets for these players. Probably a lot of players who don't deserve that kind of shielding. But, he did say there's a massive job that needs to be done, and the ownership is going to give me what I need, which raised a lot of eyebrows, considering all the KSE, Daniel Ek consortium rumors of the last 2 weeks. But let's talk, before we get to possible incomings, I think it's pretty clear about the possible outgoings. Let's begin with the enormity, the scale of this project. If you're really going to do this right, and you've got the bad contracts off, Ozil's gone, Mustafi's gone, all those toxic players and their toxic contracts, just as bad, are gone now. They're off the books in a couple of weeks. How many players need to go out? How many players have worn out their welcome? Obviously, Jacob just talked about Ceballos, and that was obvious. Watching him huffing and puffing and just, I think you described it as chat, he's pulling a refrigerator. And we all kind of nodded our heads and said, yes, and we've seen that too much. But who else walks away? Who else is playing their last matches for the badge right now, in your opinion?
Well, do you want names or positions? I can give
Both.
names. I don't mind giving names. I think
we can name names.
I think Leno, I like him a lot. I really do like him as a goalkeeper, but for what we want, I don't think he has it in him to play out from the back. He struggles with his kicking and his distribution. Bellerin as well. We've mentioned numerous times why we think Bellerin probably should leave this summer. Rob Holding, I like Rob Holding. I think he's a good player, but ultimately, is he first, second, or third choice quality? Probably not. Mohamed El Nene. I like him. I like all of these players, but ultimately they're just not good enough. El Nene, he's tidy. But again, if we're trying to challenge for the top four and win titles, we need an upgrade there.
Ceballos. Just put him on
Ceballos, yes, Ceballos.
and just move on.
Yeah, I'm not even going to bother. Maitland-Niles, I think, is going to leave. I think Guendouzi, Torreira. Literally, our whole overhaul of this squad is going to be in the midfield. I think we need a new striker. I like Lacazette again, but he's getting 31 year left on his contract. I don't think we should keep him. I think we should be looking at someone younger. And I think we probably need a new wide player. As much as I think Saka is good, Pepe is good, we can't put too much on Saka and Smith Rowe's shoulders anymore. Like, we shouldn't be pinning our hopes on teenagers. We need senior players that's going to step up and deliver and drag our team forward.
6 players you mentioned, but you're also not. Let's bring in the players who are on loan. So I'm going to put a menu in front of you and see, and you just tell me yes or no, or stay or leave. Matteo Guendouzi.
Leave.
Okay, so that's 7 now. Joe Willock. You can loan him. I'm going to give you the option of loaning him again.
See, the thing is, I would put him on loan. I'd tie him down to a new contract, put him on loan. But if someone offered me 35 million for him, I'd be like, I like you, Joe, but sorry. Goodbye.
So we'll say 7.5 there. Okay.
Yeah.
Ainsley Maitland-Niles.
Leave.
Okay, we're up to 8. A player who's just kind of fallen off the radar, who's on the roster. What do you do with Reece Nelson?
And it's another tough one. I love Reece Nelson. I think he is such a talented player with so much potential. And he just hasn't been given a chance this year. Mainly because he has one game and then he's injured for the next 6. But that was the same for Smith Rowe. If Nelson can get consistency with his games, then I genuinely would keep him.
One more. You may have talked about him, but I was thinking of Lacazette, so he might have slipped me. Eddie Nketiah.
I'll leave. I don't think he's good enough.
You've hit all fingers on my 2 hands now. That's 10 players out. That's a massive job. So, Jake, I'm going to bring you back. Ryan has 10 players on his perhaps you're gone, and that's with Joe Willock as a loanee. That's a lot of outgoings. Is there anybody on that list who you would fight to keep or argue of keeping?
The only one is Joe Willock, which Ryan wasn't sold on getting rid of. It's the only one I can consider keeping. The rest of them, they've had their chances. They've done nothing with them. They can go. And also, I did mention it on the chat the other day. If we have no Europe, we're not going to need a big squad. We can really trim it down and get quality. We don't need, we might need El Neni for a game or 2 in the Europa League. We don't have it. Let's trim it down, get quality in, and then, hopefully next year we need a bigger squad again and we can get better squad players or upgrade again.
You're going for 10 out, so not necessarily 10 in. That's arguably too much for a manager to incorporate into a squad, in that even if you get a full summer and a full camp. So with that, I'm going to stay with you, but we'll go back to Ryan. Prioritize the positions. I mean, Arsenal doesn't have a starting 11, and that's been one of the problems we've seen all year, is that any time the manager has to rotate, or anytime he loses, he's got about 6 core players, and anytime 1 or 2 of those can't show up and he can't put all 6 out there, the performance level dips considerably. Looking at who we have, who are the priority? Name the top, say, 3 or 4 priority positions for you this summer, the must-haves. Not necessarily names, but positions they have to upgrade.
Yep, I'll start from the back. So we're going to need at least 1, maybe 2 goalkeepers, depending on the situation with Leno. So we certainly need a backup goalkeeper with Ryan's loan ending. So that's, maybe 2 in the same position. We're going to need a backup left back. I think that's it's been our downfall so many games this season. Tierney's been out, so we've put in Cedric, who can't do the same job because he's right-footed. We've put in Xhaka, who has his own limitations, and then that unbalances the midfield as well. We just need a left back. It's absolutely killed us, one on the list that we haven't mentioned who is coming back is Kolasinac, which we're going to have to get rid of again. That's how bad he was. The fact that we desperately need a left back and we still shipped him out.
That raises a whole other set of questions. That's for a whole other show, but keep going.
Yeah. So the backup left back, and then midfield, we're going to need, a couple of midfielders. Certainly one more defensive, one more attacking. So at least two there, and then a new striker as well. Wide player, I know Ryan's mentioned it. I think it might be an area to target, but it would be a lower priority. We got Martinelli, who didn't play much this season, who should play more. So I think it's get those other positions done and then look at it.
I'm going to give you, I know there's so much you're trying to juggle in your mind, but this one seemed to slip by you, but I'm going to put it out there. The club has 3 right backs, but they really don't have any, right?
Yeah, I think I said it on here a couple of weeks back. The fact that we've got 3 right backs and not a single one has nailed down the starting spot says it all. So yeah, we definitely need a new right back. And then Bellerin looks like he's off and should be off. What we do with the other 2, is yet to be seen. Obviously, Chambers is the more versatile and homegrown. But yeah, we definitely need a new right back in.
All right, Ryan, prioritize like your 4 critical. These are the must-haves. You can. I'm not going to put a numerical limit on you. There may be with this squad. There may be 5 or 6, but from must-have, the worst, absolutely non-negotiable. Got to have this position. Then work me down. How many are non-negotiable must-haves in your opinion, and what are those positions?
So, must-haves: right back, central midfielder, attacking midfielder. They're the must-haves, and then the next level would be goalkeeper, because technically we can just sit on Leno and not let him leave. So either way, we're okay. And striker, because if Lacazette and Eddie Nketiah both leave, we're left with Aubameyang and Balogun, which Balogun hasn't had the experience playing at this level yet, so you don't really want to put that on his shoulders. Backup left back also is a must-have. I completely forgot about that. And another central midfielder, which is another one, a level below must-have.
And of course, we haven't even talked about African Cup of Nations, right? When we talk about midfield, because that could take several key players away. That could take Abba away. That could take Partey away. Who am I missing? There's at least one other player who could be going to this. I mean, El Neni, if he stays, Pepe, right? There's 3 core players, 3 starters right there. So they have to keep that in mind. All right. So with that, let's stay with you. All right. You gave me the priority. Let's talk about those 3 right back. And you gave me 2 midfielders, attacking mid and central mid. Okay. Who has your eye? And Twitter is all abuzz. Names are being thrown about. You've had your own. You and Sam have a show. Is it At the Bar? You've been running it for months. And those of you who are listening, if you don't watch it, go to our site, go to the archives. It's well worth your time. Who is over the course of the year or even longer has caught your eye and say, boy, this gentleman would be really perfect for, say, right back, midfield, attacking mid?
So I've got a list on my phone, £180 million worth of players that I think would
Can you
improve.
share them with us?
Of course I can. I think these guys would thoroughly improve our team. So we have Onana from Ajax as a goalkeeper. And then second goalkeeper would be David Raya from Brentford. Left back would be Ryan Bertrand free from
On free.
Southampton.
There you go.
Yeah. Right back, Max Aarons from Norwich, who I've been saying for a long, long time Arsenal wanted to replace Bellerin. Bissouma for defensive midfielder from Brighton. 2 central midfielders in Camavinga from Rennes and Houssem Aouar from Lyon. And then my striker is very controversial. It's going to be Tammy Abraham from Chelsea.
He's tall. Okay. And,
Very
you know,
tall.
the names that we kicked out, Ivan Toney comes up a lot. And certainly he'd be a worthy target to chase. But, you know, I was doing some research on him. He's 179 centimeters. He's 5'10" in the English system. Not the classic target man, not Giroud height, you know, not certainly not Tammy Abraham height. Tammy Abraham's a good 5-6 inches taller. Is that a criterion? I mean, we were talking about Odsonne Edouard a year ago. He's kind of fallen off the map, but he's more of that classic target man, Adebayor, the big man in the center of the pitch. Is that what tips you to Abraham?
Yeah, I think me and Sam, we talk quite a lot about who we would have for a striker because we are we have differing opinions on what our striker should need. So he obviously wants Ivan Toney, who's an all action-packed striker, he does everything. But for me, I think we need a second option. We see with Aubameyang, there's some games where we just whip him 30 crosses in a game, and Aubameyang's not going to score a header. Let's be real, he scored 3 headers in his 80 goals for Arsenal. We need someone who's tall, who can hold the ball up, bring others into play, and has a very good goal-scoring record. And I think Abraham fits that. He did it for Swansea when he was on loan there. He went to Aston Villa, banged in goals in the Championship for fun. And he's done it for Chelsea this year. And from what the reports on Twitter are saying, he's available. If we put up the money, I would hope they would listen.
He certainly seems like a player who would probably favor a move like that, given that Werner's taken his minutes away at Chelsea. He'd get a chance to stay in London, play for a big club, and get a lot more minutes than he's looking at if he goes. Well, maybe he goes on loan and gets a lot of minutes, but
there's rumours on Twitter in the last 24 hours that Chelsea are looking at Harry Kane and Haaland. So even more reason for Abraham to leave.
Okay, Jacob, let's bring you back. Ryan has given his positions, and what's interesting to me about them is how many players are from the Prem, Basuma, or from the Championship. Aaron's, somebody like Ivan Toney, or somebody like Tammy Abraham, also English. So the adaptation period for those players, you would think, would be a lot shorter than somebody coming from the Italian league or the French league, or, you know, they don't have to get up to speed. They don't have to adapt to the physicality of English football. How big a priority is that for you when you're putting your list together? And I'm going to give you the chance to throw your names out. You're in no ways beholden to Ryan's list.
Yeah, I think it's really important. You know, we've brought in some players who have struggled to adapt. You know, Pepe, Partey has been, you know, some games he's looked great, sometimes looks like he struggled a bit, although that's partly to do with the other options we've had. But, you know, having players in who know the league, know exactly what's required, I think it's going to be really important because we need to get off to a quick start next season. And I think, importantly, Arteta needs to get off to a quick start next season. So
True.
He's going to want players who know the league as well as fitting the profile of player he wants, so that they can gel in quicker. And obviously, Aaron's would come from the Championship, but he did it in the Prem last season. So it's not like it was a completely new league. But yeah, in terms of some of the names Ryan's mentioned, generally, I can't argue them all. I'm probably with Sam in that I'd rather go for Toney over Abraham. But, you know, Tammy has got some good qualities. And we saw it from him, particularly last season, not so much this season. So I wouldn't be against the move. I just I don't know. Personally, I just prefer Tony, but there's not much in it for that.
Well, gentlemen, I'm going to throw another third option, and it comes from Sam, who's listening to the pod, and threw an interesting comment into the discussion. He's of the mind of, well, why not both? Why not bring in Abraham and Tony? I'm gonna let you pick at that one first. Would you entertain that, Jacob?
Well, obviously, I'd entertain the idea. I don't think it's particularly likely with the amount of other signings we've got to work on. But yeah, they both offer something slightly different, and they're both of the right age profile. Aubameyang is aging. I can't see him getting another contract after the current one. So, that's only a couple more years of him. So having two strikers of the right age profile to, keep getting better with the club after settling in would be fantastic.
Ryan, it's an intriguing idea, but don't you, if you do that, you check all the boxes, all the different profiles and everything else, but then aren't you putting the squeeze on Balogun if you do that?
Yeah, and that would be my issue with that is Tammy and Tony are 25 and 23.
I think Tony is 23. Yeah.
Yeah. So Balogun's 19. So the path, if we sign two strikers after tying him down, it seems like we've basically lied to the kids, saying, "Oh, we've got this pathway for you to get into the first team," and then we sign two new strikers. It's like it's a big two fingers up for Balogun, in my opinion. I would sign one at 24, Abraham, and then you got Aubameyang, Abraham, Balogun in a good age gap between them all.
Okay. All right.
I just want to say quickly,
please,
that AFC Bell have been tweeting about Camavinga in the last 15, 20 minutes.
Okay.
Arsenal, if it decides to make an offer that matches what the French club Rennes that owns the player is asking for, will be an inclusive choice of the conditions favoured by the players' camp in any possible future destination. So basically, we will be considered by the player.
Well, this gets me to the point. I was going to bring it up, but you've set it up nicely, right? When I saw that name, my eyebrows raised. That's a player, again, he's 19 years old, right? He is world class. He's been coveted by all the big clubs. And, last summer, before COVID basically shut the market down, both the big Spanish dailies that cover Real and Barca were of the opinion of, he's ours. His future is in Spain. It's not a matter of if he comes, it's only a matter of when. And the only question now is he going to wind up at Real or is he going to wind up at Barca? So now suddenly we're seeing Arsenal in the equation. And to me, I'm going to put quickly editorialize here. What this tells me is that, we learned something as distasteful as it was from this whole Super League mess, which is the Spanish clubs really are in a mess. And as the Italian clubs are in a mess. And we've seen, it was reported yesterday in papers as big in the United States as the Washington Post, that Juve is facing expulsion from Serie A because they have not abandoned the Super League project. I think they are in it, and the two big Spanish clubs are still the only three that are left. That tips their hand. I mean, it looks, gentlemen, like Arsenal, this is a unique situation where when you're sitting ninth in the table, ordinarily, if you're in this and you're a big club, my only way back in is to spend like crazy. Well, Arsenal may have to spend like crazy, but what would have cost you 300 million to get back in the game might now only cost you 200 million or 150 million. They have a unique opportunity here. They have to take advantage of it, can't they? Don't they? I'll say with you, Ryan.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's rumours that Asamoah can be got for 30 million euros, which is about 24 million pounds. Whereas last season we was quoted 50 million pounds.
55 million euros, I think, or 60 million euros, right? This almost 50% less.
And Camavinga last summer would have cost 80 to 90 easily. Mm-hmm. This summer is more than half of that. So if Kroenke really wants to make amends with the fans, this is the summer to do it, because COVID tax on all the players, prices are going down constantly. Players are running down their contracts so they can get bigger ones elsewhere. This is the summer where we can make a proper fight back. If
Also,
they put, sorry,
go ahead, finish.
if they
I'm
put
sorry.
250 million into this squad for next season with no European football, we're going to have all week to practice, to learn Arteta's ideas. Because that's another thing with Arteta that I've realised recently. He's had no time to implement his ideas, really, because we've been playing every 3 days. So we're always focused on the next game, on the next opposition. He hasn't really had the chance to tell his players, I want you to play this way. So with no European football next year, we have the time on the training pitch to focus on ourselves. So I think it'll be good. And Kroenke needs to back us if he's not selling.
Jacob, another part is that if you are a club that has money, and I can't go into detail here, we're 40 minutes in, but I can put out, KSC has money from other revenue streams, most notably the NFL and their ridiculously large TV contract. This was just announced 2 weeks ago. So they have money. It's just a matter of will. But when Ryan was talking about your dollar or your pound going farther in this market, or your euro going farther, buying more, that's true. But there's a second part of that makes Arsenal really appealing, which is if you have a club that has money, you can afford to pay a wage that a lot of other clubs can no longer pay. I mean, we're hearing rumors that, the players at Real, players at other places have to do what Arsenal players were asked to do last year, which is take a pay cut. I don't think Arsenal's players are going to be asked to do that next season. Hopefully the fans will be back in the stands as COVID restrictions are being lifted. But that's another thing. You don't have European football, but if you can pay a good wage, you're in the game.
Yeah, well, definitely. And, you see it on Twitter all the time, people going, oh, why would they come from this club to Arsenal with no football? And, we still pay better than a lot of the Champions League clubs, maybe not as much as the very, very top ones, but we are still an appealing club to anyone outside of, 6 or 7 teams. Having said that, we do want to be careful with how much we spend on wages. We've seen the trouble that gets us into when, trying to refresh the squad or move players on, that we can't get rid of them. But as long as we're smart with that, then yes, we can offer them better contracts. Like, for example, Camavinga, we can offer him a better contract than a lot of the clubs right now on a long-term deal. So that's always going to be a factor. These players have short careers. They want, as much as they are sportsmen, they want to get into the best competitions. Money will always talk to an extent.
All right. So I'm going to keep it with you. Okay. As crazy as it is, as improbable as it is, Arsenal are still mathematically alive to get back into the Europa League after winning at West Brom. 2-part question for you, but everything is dependent on tomorrow's match at Stamford Bridge, which I've kind of held off on discussing, right? Because Chelsea's in form, Arsenal hasn't been. But if somehow they can get a result, even a draw, I mean, I think a win is probably too much to wish for, but if they can somehow get a draw, they still have ridiculously thin, but they still have a path into Europa League. Is this something that you would wish for at this point, given everything we've seen and the difficulty that Thursday football presents for this team? Do you really want to say, well, we could offer players Europa, but on the other hand, say maybe we're better off, as Ryan said, just practicing all week, doing what Chelsea did under Conte when they didn't have European football, practice, gel, get better, and just rocket back up the table next year?
That's a tough question. Obviously, the Europa League does offer, the grand prize of the Champions League if we were able to get through it. But it does ultimately also weaken your position in the league. We've seen, time and time again, it's a struggle to play so often. But, you know, if we were to have that strong a finish to the season and qualify for the Europa League, I think that would be a boost to the club and the players. You know, there's nothing like getting a run of results and getting that kind of last gasp, you know, celebration of some sort. Obviously, it's not the celebration we want, but that would be an achievement this season to build on into next season. And, you know, Europe always makes us a bit more of an appealing package. And I believe the Europa League is actually a smaller competition next season because of the Europa Conference League they're starting. I'm not entirely sure what that means in terms of amount of matches, but I do know it's a smaller competition. So whether or not that would be a nicer competition to play in as well.
All right, Ryan, same question. What kind of prize is Europa League next year? Is it really, are you better off just letting the manager gel? Jacob made the great point. You can build a smaller squad, maybe a better squad that can change your thinking in the market. Let's go for more quality players rather than having to bring in 7, 8, 9 new faces.
Yeah, I don't want Europa League anymore. I'm just fed up with the soundtrack. I'm fed up with the draw. I'm fed up with the teams that we have to play, and I'm just bin it off. Finish 10th, 11th. I just don't care anymore. It's no Europa League football for me.
Champions League or bust, right? And
Yeah, absolutely.
you know, we did see this. Now, obviously, the Chelsea's squad under Conte was not going through the massive overhaul that Arsenal will have to go through starting this summer. But being able to focus, I mean, he had a horrible start. You know, we all remember they came to the Emirates early in the season. Arsenal ran him off the pitch. I think it was 3-0. And everybody thought, oh, Chelsea's 12th. Conte's a mess. And then he just said, no, I believe in my club. And then they didn't lose again for something like 3 months. And they actually won the league that year. Now, I don't expect this club, you know, a rebuilt Arsenal to challenge for the league, but I do expect them to be far more competitive and hopefully deeper and better qualitatively than what we've seen this year and certainly last year. Stay with you, Ryan.
Yeah, and I just think it's the time between games, like the recovery time. Playing on a Thursday and then on a Sunday, like if we're playing away on a Thursday night and then we're traveling back on a Friday, we have half a session on a Friday and then a full session on Saturday. I don't think that's enough training to focus on the next game. And you see how slow we are.
Are the injuries this year partially down to that? Partially?
I don't think so. I think it's just because of the condensed season, because we've literally played every 3 days for the last 6 months. And some positions we're shorter than we are elsewhere. Like obviously Tierney has had to play an unbelievable amount of minutes to Xhaka. I think against Villareal was his first game where he didn't play. I can't remember the last time he didn't play 90 minutes for us. I think it must have been 14, 15 games before that. Saka's played an unbelievable amount of minutes, so that's probably where the injuries are coming from, the lack of recovery time more than anything else.
All right, Jacob, we're in injury time on the pod. Big match tomorrow. If nothing else, Pride. They're at the Bridge. Can Arsenal get a result there? And give me a prediction.
Well, they absolutely can if all the players show up. Then we are capable. It'd be tight whichever way it goes, I think. You know, Chelsea have something to play for as well. So I reckon it'd be a 2-2 draw.
Interesting. Ryan, can Arsenal get a result? Can the kids do it again? Can Pepe do it again?
Yeah, they can. But as we all know, it depends what team turns up.
And there's really no way of predicting that, is there?
No, because 1 week you'll get prime Brazil 1971, and then next week you'll play, the Arsenal deserve to be playing in the Conference South. So we don't really know.
You still want to venture a prediction?
2-1 Chelsea.
Oh, well, you snatched my result. I shouldn't let you go before me. So, all right, but that's how I see it. Unfortunately, I think Chelsea's defense is just too tight. And again, when we have problems scoring, and I don't see us getting 2 goals at the bridge. And I just don't think one is going to be enough given our midfield frailties. Maybe if Xhaka can play tomorrow with Partey in the midfield, we can kind of keep the score down. But ultimately, I just think we're too young, we're too exhausted, we're too brittle, we're too thin. And yeah,
I think we'll probably
2-1.
get
But
more
anyway.
red cards than goals. Usually the case.
You never know. You never know. They beat Chelsea in a final last year and nobody expected them to do it. So who knows what we'll see tomorrow. All right. We just got to keep our chins up. The summer is coming. The window's going to open. And we have that to look forward to. So again, we thank all of you for sticking with us for these 15 minutes on these many topics. I want to thank Jacob for coming in and pinch hitting ably for Sam this week. I want to thank Ryan for being his usual consistent self, the anti-Pepe and of the pod. And again, we all thank all of you for tuning in, whether you listen to us, whether you watch us here live. Come back next week. Hopefully we'll have 2 good results to discuss. Obviously, we should have a lot more on the window. Follow us on Twitter at Daily Gooner Pod. Follow us individually on Twitter as well. Again, for Jacob and for Ryan, I'm Raphael. We bid you a good night from the pod.